David and Goliath by Malcolm Gladwell. This has to be my favorite Malcolm Gladwell book. The book starts with like a breakdown of the David and Goliath story. It starts with a very detailed theological breakdown of what exactly happened between David and Goliath. It went over the fact that the story is actually incomplete. Okay, I think Malcolm did a lot of theological research, but it was actually really fun to see a different side to the story of David and Goliath. David and Goliath were playing in totally different rules. Goliath, back in the day, in the days of the old, when they fought wars every time, to reduce bloodshed, the two kingdoms usually present a warrior to defend the kingdoms. The two warriors are supposed to fight. Whoever wins, the two champions, usually the strongest person from each side, they're supposed to fight and defend their kingdoms basically. If they died in that fight, their kingdom lost basically. So that was the same thing that was happening. The Philistines and the Israelites. The Philistines came with their own champion, which is Goliath, and the Israelites saw Goliath and could not present a champion because everyone was too scared to fight. And David, a farm boy, came out to fight Goliath, which is really interesting. Goliath was carrying heavy armor, heavy protection with weapons, while David came with just a stick and his pouch filled with stone and his slingshot, basically. Okay, so Goliath was expecting a sword fight, but David changed the rules. David fought in a different style that Goliath wasn't expecting, which put David in the advantage and threw off Goliath. David would have lost if he came in with the armor that was given to him in the beginning, because that's not the fight he is good at. He's not good at fighting with swords, basically. So if David fought with swords and armor and all that kind of boring stuff, he would definitely lose the fight, because he's fighting with someone who has trained all his life while he is just a shepherd boy. But he changed the rules by using the rocks in the pouch, which is quite interesting, which is one part the Bible doesn't really emphasize on. It doesn't emphasize on the fact that they are both fighting in different rules. Goliath is expecting a sword fight, while David changed the entire rules and fought with something else. The fact that David changed the rules put Goliath off guard, which is quite interesting. I keep saying which is quite interesting. After that, the book went into the part one, which is the advantages of disadvantages and the disadvantages of advantages. Meaning, what you consider your strength might actually be your weakness. For example, Goliath considered all his power, all his might, all his armor as his strength, but David changed that, found the disadvantage in that, which is what really happens whenever a small David beats a Goliath, basically. What you consider an advantage might really be a disadvantage. Then in that part, the book goes into multiple chapters explaining different stories, actually present day stories, not thousands of years in the Bible. Present the story of how there are disadvantages to advantages, basically. The first story was about this guy, Vivek Ranadiv, an Indian guy who found himself in Silicon Valley coaching his daughter's basketball team. So basketball has so many rules. I actually don't know all the rules, but emphasizing on this rule, the full court press. Okay, it's when you go to an opponent, and I think the opponent scores. If I'm wrong, anyone listening, please correct me. When you go to an opponent, the opponent score. When you go to an opponent's side and the opponent scores or you miss, you're supposed to go back to your own side A full court press is when you stay at that opponent's part playing defensive, so the opponent doesn't have a chance to go back to your own court and score. Basically, I hope I didn't just murder basketball to basketball lovers out there. But so he was coaching his daughter's basketball team, and he grew up in India. He never played basketball, so when they explained the rule to him, it was like, what? It was like, okay, he didn't actually say this, but it was like, WTF. Like, the rules are so dumb. Why don't you just play full court press all the time and you have the chance to win the other team? Which is what he did. The team he was coaching are Silicon Valley girls. Silicon Valley girls are nerdy, glasses, basically techie people. So they have no chance against real other school girls who have spent most of their time playing sport and being sporty. So, but them playing a full court press every time give them an advantage that the other stronger team didn't have, which is crazy because you are finding the disadvantage in the advantage the other team who are well trained in basketball, while this team are just weak. And this playing with that actually helped them get to the state championship, which is crazy. If you can exploit the disadvantages of advantages, it can take you to the craziest length. This book opens the eye to a lot of things, honestly. Okay, I think the part 2 is the theory of desirable difficulties. So it goes over many people's life. It goes over dyslexia. It goes over actually 3 people with dyslexia. Okay, dyslexia is a disease when some neurons in the brain, the neurons that actually help with a lot of things, processing words and things like that, travel to the wrong part of the brain, resulting in some children not being able to read fast. And it's a very terrible thing because we don't exactly find out till you're like 8. Okay, so it goes over the life of a few people and how being dyslexic actually helped them. Being dyslexic actually helped them be better persons and attain careers that couldn't have been possible it would have been possible if they didn't have dyslexic, but they now had an advantage that no one would expect, like David Boyce. David Boyce was a dyslexic, actually is still a dyslexic person, and the way he got out of school, he grew up in a place where reading actually matters. So the way he got out of school was by memorizing things his mother taught him, which helped him get out of school, but didn't really get him a reasonable career. Then he got married. Then his wife had to sit him down and ask him, like, what are you going to do with your life? Then he applied for college, and today is one of the greatest trial lawyers in the world. Actually the most famous, not the greatest. So David Boyce used to be a construction worker when he married, and from being a construction worker, which is actually not a bad profession for someone who is dyslexic. Okay, dyslexic people usually end up in the prison or a very low range job because of their reading disorder. So it's very difficult to walk up to that level. In the old days, not today, because now we have social media and you can be reaching a snap just to YouTube. But in those days, it actually mattered to be able to read very, very, very well. Because how would you go through a lot of files? How would you read things? How would you go through your daily activities? So, and how did this construction worker go from being, how did this guy who had high school problems, who had reading problems, go from being a construction worker to becoming one of the most famous trial lawyers in the world? He took advantage, he saw advantage in his disadvantage. The fact that he was dyslexic opened doors for more new skills to open up. The fact that he was dyslexic gave him the ability to increase his, helped him improve of his listening ability. So he spent he spent most of his time improving how he listens and how he memorizes things. So he's not focusing on reading better, he's focusing on increasing, he's focusing on getting better at listening and memorizing things. So instead of him reading hours and hours and hours, all he had to do was just listen. And through that, he became one of the most famous trial lawyers in the world, which is quite impressive. Because I don't have to focus on knowing how to read, but I can focus on knowing how to listen better, and I could do just as good as David Boyce. Meaning, if I lose something, I don't have to focus on that whole thing, because there are other doors of opportunity coming my way. I guess the other things I could take advantage of that situation and develop new things. This book is packed with amazing thing. Another thing I learned in this book talked about this person, Caroline Sachs, who had the chance to pick two universities. She could either pick Brown University or one lower university. They both had already given her admission. It's just for her to pick which one she wanted, and she picked Brown University without any hesitation because it was the bigger university. She has always been passionate about science, so she thought being in Brown University, which is a really big university, would help her grow in science instead of being in the lower university, which is where most of us fall in. We have the opportunity to pick, let's say, a university that is highly competitive as Unilag or any other university in Nigeria. I actually fell into that trap too. But the thing about it is that when she was in Brown University, she started losing her love for science, and this phenomenon got her. Okay, the phenomenon is, would you rather prefer to be the big fish in a small pond or the little fish in a big pond? Most of us would rather, I think most companies decide on who to employ with this principle. They literally pick a guy. They would rather take a guy that comes from, let's say, Harvard University. Like, even if he's the lowest guy in Harvard University, they would rather pick the lowest guy in Harvard University than pick the biggest guy in Unilag, which is crazy. And we do that a lot in this country. So that's the phenomenon. That's the same phenomenon that happened to her. She picked the big pond, and she was a little fish. So the big pond demoralized her because everybody there was just smart and no one was willing to share their study secrets. So she, instead of her really, she's not really a dumb person. She's not a dumb person. She's actually really smart. But the fact that she's not in a place that she could grow, she's in a place where everyone is everyone for themselves, demoralized her. So she's a little fish in a big pond. If she had picked the big fish, so if she had picked the little pond and had been the big fish in that little pond, she would have been more successful and more happy, basically. I don't know, why do people, not just companies, why do everyone decide things like this? Why do they assume that the fact that you're coming from a big pond means you are automatically going to be more qualified, because you're automatically going to be more tastier because you're a fish that comes from the big pond, not realizing that the biggest fish in a small pond is better than the smallest fish in a big pond. This book is amazing. I feel like this is where I can stop with explaining how much I love this book, but I would advise that you get the book for yourself and just enjoy it.